Folks, we're going to get started in about a minute, hopefully. Again, we have 4 different translation rooms for those who need translation. We have Mandarin, which is in the French room, Cantonese, which is in the Chinese room, Spanish, which is in the Spanish room, and ASL, which is in the German room. We are only using the chat feature for technical issues. So if you're having any technical issues, put that into the chat and I will try to help you as best I can. Otherwise, we are going to start with a presentation from GCAS, and then we will have question and answer session that will start with questions from our elected officials, and then questions from the tenants from 70 Mulberry, and then finally opening it up to questions for the rest of the public. We will be using the raise hand feature for that. If you don't know where the raise hand feature is, you just need to go into the participants tab in the toolbar and open that up, and you will see the raise hand feature. Or if you're on a phone, you can hit *9. And now I'm going to hand it over to, I believe, Gigi, who's going to kick us off.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. On behalf of all of the overlapping elected officials who are co-sponsors of tonight's event, thank you for joining us. I know that this is a very important topic for the community, and I want to thank also Michael from Community Board 3 for handling the technical side of today's presentation, and the city for joining us today. All of the elected official offices have agreed to forego introductions so that we maximize our time. So without further delay, I believe Quentin will be starting us off on behalf of DCAS.
Thanks so much, Gigi, and good evening, everyone. My name is Quentin Haynes, and I'm the Executive Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this town hall on 70 Mulberry. And a special thank you to the elected officials and Community Board 3 for co-hosting this event. They have been great partners, and I look forward to a continued dialogue with them as we work to rebuild 70 Mulberry. Over the past few months, I have learned a great deal about the rich history of 70 Mulberry. There's a lot of passion in this community about this building, and it is clear to me that 70 Mulberry is a place that has meant so much to past and present residents of Chinatown. Now, most recently, 70 Mulberry was home to 5 dedicated community-based organizations. We know that they are continuing to provide services, but the loss of this physical space has impacted their work. We remain committed to working with them and all other stakeholders on the future of 70 Mulberry. As for the future, there has been a lot of speculation, and I want to be very clear tonight that there has been no decision made by the city on the redevelopment of 70 Mulberry. The one thing that we do know for sure is that all 5 organizations will be allowed to return. This is a commitment that the mayor has made several months ago, and a message that we continue to affirm throughout this process. Now, how the site will be rebuilt will depend a lot on what we hear from the community. We have learned a lot through our meetings with the community board, elected officials, small business owners, tenants, and the general public. As we look ahead to next steps, there are a few things that will happen over the next few months that are essential for the future of 70 Mulberry. First, the city's announcing tonight, with the support of the elected officials and the tenants, that we are committing resources to hire a consultant to coordinate the community visioning process. To help the city identify a consultant to lead this work, we are going to establish an advisory group that will consist of 1 representative from each of the 5 tenant organizations and a designee from the elected officials and the community board. Community input will not just be limited to that group. Once we have selected a consultant to spearhead this process, they will develop and implement an engagement strategy that will include soliciting input from all residents, businesses, and community organizations, as well as other stakeholders. This process needs to be thorough and thoughtful, but cannot be indefinite. The longer we take to gain consensus and develop a plan, the longer it will take to return this site back to the community and back to the tenants. We will work smart and fast, and we have set a timeline of 90 days to complete this task. Through these community conversations, we hope to develop guiding principles and recommendations that the city will consider for the redevelopment of 70 Mulberry. Now, secondly, while we engage the community for input on the rebuild, the city will pause on demolition of the building once we reach the second floor. Now, as a reminder, the top 3 floors were mandated by the Department of Buildings to be removed due to life and safety concerns. Now, we hope that this news is received with enthusiasm and acknowledges that the city is listening to your concerns and that the city is committed to returning to Chinatown, a building that respects and sustains its rich history. Now, we would like to spend some time talking about the damage at 70 Mulberry. While our engineers presented our assessment at a previous community board meeting, and hearing and listening to your concerns, the community concerns, the city hired an independent consultant to assess the fire damage as well. With us tonight are representatives from the Lero Group and SGH who will present on their assessment and findings. I will now turn it over to Joseph Grant, Senior Vice President of the Lero Group, who will talk about their findings and their assessment. Joseph?
Joseph, you need to raise your hand so I know to unmute you because you're not on under your name. Joseph?
And also Michael, there's Bruce Caro and Nathaniel Smith as well.
I needed these names like hours ago. Can they raise their hands so that I know to unmute them? Because there's over 200 participants in this meeting and I can't search through the list.
I'm sure they heard your request.
They've all been given the right to unmute themselves. Quentin, are they going to start talking? They should have the ability to talk.
Sure, so Joseph, Nathaniel, Bruce, you can take it from here.
Okay.
Oh, now it's unmuted, but he has the tape on, so he's muted.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay,
How are you?
very good. Thanks, Quentin. Sorry for the technical issues, guys.
No worries.
So as Quentin mentioned, I'm Joe Grant. I'm with Lero Architects and Planners, and we're here just to briefly discuss what our findings were for the fire damage assessment at 70 Mulberry Street. Quentin, who's handling the slides?
Michael, the host.
Okay.
Max? Okay. Oh, sorry about that.
We go to the next slide. As Quentin mentioned, just to familiarize you with the project team, the Lero Group was brought on to be a project architect to do an assessment of the architectural elements of the building, as well as the MEP. We brought on Simpson Gumpert Hager as a project structural review and code engineer for the review of the building. Next slide.
Grant, I'm going to ask you to talk louder. There's a lot of messages coming in the chat that people can't hear you. Can you please speak up?
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Next. Okay, so just to tell you a little bit about Lero, we're a New York-based full-service multidisciplinary firm. We provide architecture, engineering, construction management, and technology services. We've done over 500 jobs in the last 5 years, and we're currently working on over $5 billion worth of construction projects in New York. We've been involved in historic restoration and renovation projects at Snug Harbor, which you see on the screen there, Governor's Island, Rye Playland in Westchester County, and Hempstead Town Hall in Long Island, just to name a few of those. Next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned, my name's Joseph Grant. I'm a Senior Vice President of Lero and the principal of the Lero Architects and Planners Group. I've been an architect for over 20 years. I was the managing architect for the World Trade Center Memorial Museum. I was also the managing architect for Columbia University's Phase 1 Manhattanville campus development. I was the project manager of interiors on 432 Park Avenue, residential and mixed use high-rise tower. And I've worked on hundreds of schools for the New York City School Construction Authority as a consultant in particular. And you can see that at the bottom right is Public School 33 in the Bronx and 171 in Manhattan, which were both renovation projects of CBJ Snyder schools. Next slide. Next one.
I'm trying. I just got this literally 5 minutes before we started.
I gotcha.
Not fully loaded onto my computer. So
Okay.
there's a big X on the screen on this slide that you want to show.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. We can still talk to it anyway. You're going to hear from Bruce Currow. Bruce is the senior project manager for MEP. Bruce is a licensed professional. He's got over 13 years. He's worked on numerous sites for NYCHA for resiliency and post-damage assessment and improvement. He's the project manager for Coney Island's new boiler plant facility. He also worked for Suffolk Rehab Center's boiler restoration. And he's been involved in numerous NYU Winthrop Hospital healthcare system projects, specializing in MEP design, assessment, and restoration. Next slide. So you're good. We're good. As Quentin mentioned, we brought on Simpson Gumpert Hager as our consulting engineer.
Keep talking.
Okay. Okay. As our consulting engineer for structural evaluation, evaluation of building enclosures and fire life safety. SGH is a national firm. They were established in 1956. They do design, investigation, rehabilitation of structures, and they have a long history, and the very reason why we brought them on the job and work with them all the time, of forensics investigation. Next slide.
The next 3 slides all have blue X's in them for me. So is that what it's supposed to be?
Now, there you go. It's popping up now. Nathaniel Smith is the principal of SGH. He's got nearly 20 years of experience in structural investigation, emergency response, structural repair and rehabilitation. He was involved in the Serbian Orthodox Cathedral at St. Sava, St. Bridget's Church, and the Basilica at St. Patrick's Old Cathedral. Next slide. Okay, so our project objective was to do a high-level visual condition assessment of observable building fire damage. It wasn't to do a preservation analysis or a new building program analysis. We were strictly tasked with going in, looking at the building, and assessing the conditions and reporting on the condition of the building post-fire. We looked at the architectural components, the structural components, the MEP components, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and we identified code impacted elements and gave a rough order of magnitude for repairs, replacements, and any code considerations that would need to be taken into consideration for the building.
You need
Next.
to talk louder, Grant.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Next slide, please.
I'm on it. It's just not coming up. Again, I got this literally 5 minutes before we started, so.
Okay. So Lero is familiar with the building. In 2018, we were involved in a project with the Department of Design and Construction, which involved a fire alarm job with another engineer. We went in and we did a survey of the building, and we provided architectural backgrounds for that project. We were familiar with the use groups and the tenants because we did a tenant evaluation as part of that project. So we were familiar with the building, the fact that the building's 5 stories with a full basement. It was designed by CBJ Snyder and constructed in 1892. It's a walk-up style with no elevator, and it is not an ADA compliant building for any of the components: egress, ingress, restroom, circulation. So that's one of the major factors of the condition of the building. Next slide. So what did we find architecturally in the building? Well, as everybody knows, the roof was gone. It was reported that it collapsed during the fire. Portions of the walls and floors were missing due to the collapse on lower levels, but also as a result of demolition. And as you can see by the photos, the ceilings and the floors throughout the building are either missing, they're either fire damaged, or they were water damaged extensively. We also found a lot of mold growth throughout the building, most of that as a result of water damage, but also some pre-existing conditions in the basement that were exacerbated by the fire and by the introduction of water during the firefighting efforts. Next slide, please, and I'm going to turn it over to Bruce to go over some of the MEP highlights.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. So my task with my team was reviewing the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems throughout the building and assessing their condition post-fire event. So a few things we found, obviously on the upper floors, any piping distribution, wiring distribution was completely destroyed. Even working down to the lower floors due to just some demolition that was ongoing after the fire event and causes of the fire event. Most of the distribution electrical panels were removed. Any local heating or cooling equipment was damaged and removed. So like I said, most of the distribution on any upper floors was either completely demolished or severely damaged due to the event. Working down into the basement, where most of the building services come in, all the major mechanical equipment also located in the basement, just about everything suffered some sort of water damage. The electrical service being a big concern, visible signs of corrosion and water damage on the electrical service. The main boiler, which is your heating for the building, showed signs of water damage, especially on the burner and the wiring for the controls. A lot of piping and ductwork was removed post-fire event to allow for proper shoring of the building to make it structurally sound. So there was a lot of invasion of the systems for that. As far as building services, we found that, the plumbing service at the point of entry to the building was still sufficient. The plumbing main service equipment still sufficient, suffered, minor water and some debris damage, but with testing, it may be suitable. Sanitary service, another one that appeared to be intact, although there were concerns with the piping being cut on upper floors of potential debris and clogging being in that piping, but the main service seemed acceptable. Same with the natural gas service, debris and physical damage to the meter set up, but the main service coming into the building appeared to still be suitable. That the major concern is the electrical service and the water damage that sustained. This being a non-watertight system, any water that enters that electrical equipment can work back through the conduits and through the service feeders back to the street. So the electrical service is a concern of either requiring extensive testing and cleaning or a new electrical service being brought in. Other mechanical equipment on the upper roof, obviously the collapse is no longer usable. Equipment on the lower roof seemed to be still intact and operable for to maintain its post-fire condition, but it was older equipment. With the interior equipment, it was associated with being damaged, so it's expected that equipment would need a replacement as well. So that about covers the MEP systems. Like I said, most of it's in the basement, but without physical and fire damage, suffered a lot of water damage in the basement, which would make things either require extensive repair or replacement. So at this time, we'll turn it over to Nathaniel for the structural assessment.
Great. Good evening, everyone. As Joe mentioned, my name is Nathaniel Smith. I'm a principal with Simpson, Gumpertz and Hager. I'm a structural engineer. I do a lot of condition assessments of existing buildings. A lot of experience assessing structures after fires. As Joe mentioned, I worked with the parish up at St. Sava Cathedral up on 25th Street. They had a very serious fire back in 2016. Nearly destroyed the entire building. Was able to work with them to assess the damage and provide some temporary stabilization to preserve what was left of the structure up there. Also do a lot of work for insurance companies and others to evaluate fire damage. So this building obviously had pretty extensive structural damage at the upper floors. Part of the reason why Department of Buildings ordered demolition down to the third floor. To give you a sense, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the building, but to give you a sense of what the actual structure is composed of, we have the perimeter brick walls, and then predominantly the second floor through the roof is actually wood framed predominantly. So we have wood floor joists that are supported on the exterior masonry walls and also supported on a series of steel girders that run through the interior of the building. Those girders are then supported on cast iron columns. So you can imagine with the wood framing, not resistant to fire, fire spread pretty quickly through the building, causing pretty extensive damage to the wood framing at the fourth, fifth, and roof. So the roof, as a result of the fire, actually collapsed. As the roof collapsed, it took a portion of the fifth floor with it, also a portion of the fourth floor framing with it, predominantly on the south side of the building. We also saw of the remaining areas of the fourth and fifth floor on the north end of the building, pretty extensive charring of the wood framing. The charring basically eats away at the wood and reduces the cross section and then reduces the capacity of those members. With that, the collapse of the roof also damaged portions of the exterior brick masonry walls at the fifth floor. Caused some brick to fall, damaged a lot of the brick, especially above the windows at those levels. So as a safety precaution, DOB ordered those to be taken down. Below the third floor, predominantly water damage to the structure. My understanding is the fire started on the third floor, so most of the fire-related damage is from the third floor up. So below that, we have predominantly water damage. All the finishes are pretty well destroyed from the water and smoke damage. The first floor of the building is framed slightly different than the upper floors. It's predominantly steel framed with a terracotta flat arch slab system, where basically terracotta bricks are placed between the steel beams to create a slab. Down the underside of those from the basement area, we notice a significant portion of the steel is corroded from water damage, some of it probably long-term, especially where the steel bears on the perimeter masonry foundation walls. Also observe some damage to the underside of the terracotta slabs where the protective stucco has fallen off and some of the terracotta itself is deteriorated. And then the stone masonry foundation itself is fairly robust, but there is some deterioration of the mortar joints between the stones down at the basement level. So that's predominantly the issues that we found with the structure itself. Next slide, please. So as part of our work, we are also asked to do a code assessment. Basically what that entails is that when buildings are repaired, depending on the level of repairs and the cost of those repairs, it can trigger certain mandated code upgrades, particularly for the fire and life safety systems and accessibility of the building. The certificate of occupancy for the school that's on file right now for the building is listed as a school education occupancy, so K through 12. Obviously, it's not been used for that purpose for some time, but that's what the current certificate of occupancy is based on. Working with Lero put together kind of rough order of magnitude cost estimates for the repairs based on the extensive amount of repairs and the cost of those repairs. That would trigger basically bringing the entire building up to code for fire, life safety, and accessibility. So accessible entrances from the street, elevators, updating fire life safety systems, so sprinkler systems, standpipe systems, full fire alarm systems throughout the building. Emergency standby power would be required. And then also mold protection, putting in appropriate finishes within the building to prevent mold growth in the event of moisture issues. So that was basically in a nutshell, the building. If you were to repair the building, you would have to bring it up to basically meet current code. Next slide.
So that, Quentin, that's essentially what we found, what we looked at. We just want to thank everybody for their time. Appreciate everybody listening to us. Be happy to answer any questions. And we understand the sensitivity of the building. Like I said, our office is familiar with it. We've been in that building. We saw the value that it provides to the community. We're just happy to be of assistance in any way we can to the community and to the city.
Thanks so much. Michael, I'll turn it back over to you on how we proceed with the Q&A session.
Sure. Well, I know we're starting the Q&A session first with questions from our elected officials. So any elected officials that are on, if you can raise your hand to let me know that you're on. And please make sure that your name says who you are, because if it's a random name, I'm not going to know that you're actually an elected official. Then after the elected officials, we have representatives from the 5 tenants of 70 Mulberry. And I'm going to ask Gigi Lee to introduce those. She arranged that. And then afterwards, we are going to take questions from the rest of the public. You will be timed. You will have 2 minutes. We will put the timer on so that you can see that. So we ask everyone to keep to the 2 minutes, as there's over 200 people in this meeting. And I'm assuming a lot of you want to make a comment or a question. If you just have a comment, it probably will not be answered, but if you have a direct question, then we will ask a representative from DCAS to answer it. So the first elected official I see with their hand up is Yulene New. So Yulene.
Hi, everyone. I'm really glad I could see everyone today. Thank you so much for being here, all 224 of us. I just wanted to say thank you for the presentations, but also I have a question. How much funding can we expect to be allocated to 70 Mulberry Street? With the city's budget deficit, how can we be sure that 70 Mulberry will be adequately funded throughout the process for an expedited return for the tenants? And I saw that there were some different estimates on cost, and since the community has not yet decided what we want to do together yet until after this town hall, etc. I just wanted to see what the funding guarantee would be.
Hey, Assemblywoman, how are you?
Hi, Quentin.
Hey, so you did break up on half your question, but if I heard you, it was in regards to has the city allocated any funding for the current project?
Yes, and since there's different estimates right now, as it looks like, I'm kind of curious as to what the city's proposal is, and with the city's budget deficit, how can we be sure that 70 Mulberry is going to be a priority, and how will we be able to adequately fund it?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. Gotcha. So I think it's a great question. Currently, right now, since there is no plan, there hasn't been an allocation of city funds to the project. Our idea and hope is that throughout this process, we'll learn more about what the community would like for the redevelopment. And once those plans are in place, we will then be able to see what type of allocation can be made to the project. Currently, as you saw in the actual report from the consultants, they used cost estimates for construction. So that did not include the soft cost as design, permitting, construction management, those type of costs. It only used for construction, and that was used for the current square footage, right? So that was just to see if, the 41,000 square foot that currently exists or did exist pre-fire, they use that as numbers just to actually align it with the code to see what the code would require and see how much it would cost there. So again, once we go through the community process, we'll have a better idea of what the community is asking for and what that redevelopment looks like. And then the city will be able to make a decision on what that funding looks like.
Okay. I mean, just from the report, the replacement value set by DOF is 8.28 million, and the estimate repair cost is 48 million. Those are significant differences in going either route. And I just wanted to, what budget would this be in?
So it would be a capital project for the building, whether the city decides to repair or rebuild. It will be a capital project, so it would go through the capital budgeting process.
Okay, and so the timeline for that would be for our community, just for their education?
So ideally, we would get this community engagement process within the next 90 days. Just to be totally transparent, when you think about procurement and building and redevelopment in the city, you're thinking about potentially a 12-month process for kind of RFP, anywhere between 12 to 18 months for design, and anywhere between 18 and 24 months for actually construction. But again, all of this will be determined upon what we're actually designing, what we're actually building. Those dates and those approximately months that I mentioned could be different. So those are just estimates.
And the budget would have to be, of course, going through the city council. And when is their next capital budget allocation?
So I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the exact dates or details on the city council's budgeting process.
Okay, and I saw that Senator Kavanaugh has questions, so I'm going to let him ask, and then I'll come back if there's anything else I can think of right now.
Before we move on to Senator Kavanaugh, I just want to remind people, again, to raise your hand when we get to the public session. If you're on the computer, just go to the participants tab, the participants icon, and open that up, and you'll see a raise hand function. That's how you raise your hand. If you're on the phone, you just hit *9, and that's how you raise your hand. So Senator Kavanaugh?
Great, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be brief. First of all, let me just thank everybody participating in this Community Board 3 and DCAS and the co-sponsors, Gail Brewer, Nydia Velasquez, and Yulene, our wonderful assembly member you just heard from, and of course, Margaret and her staff. you know, when we first had, when we had initial conversations about this, I think DCAS was viewing this from the very important function of being kind of an engineering and construction operation, and looking at the question of what need to happen to stabilize the building, to address it as a physical structure. But I think, as Quentin mentioned, there's been an evolution and a learning process that I think is very welcome and very admirable. The city, I think, has done a good job of taking a step back and realizing that there are deeper questions about the meaning of this building, and how that meaning and the depth of commitment the community has to the building need to be reflected in the steps that we're taking going forward. So I want to thank DCAS for that, and for agreeing to this process, and also to, you know, to the step that was announced earlier of getting an outside facilitator to ensure that everybody's voice is heard, and that there's a fair and open process. And obviously they're very strong and somewhat conflicting views on what to do next. Just a question about that process. Can you, or can somebody from DCAS, probably Quentin, but talk a little bit more about what happens over that next 90 days? Is that 90 days from today? Is there a sense of when a facilitator would be available? Is there kind of a you know, at least the beginnings of an outreach plan and what that will look like, so people in the community understand kind of what the options are going to be for engaging this process?
Sure. How are you doing, Senator? Thank you for your comments. And to address kind of the process moving forward. So you are right. We would like this process to be 90 days. Ideally, it would be 90 days once we solidify the consultant to bring on board. What we are, I guess, recommending and thinking, as soon as next week, we would get the group that I mentioned, the advisory group that we would like to establish, would of course include a designee from your office and the other elected official office, inclusive of the 5 tenants, a designee or a representative from their office. We would hope to have a meeting early next week and really start to think through and hammer out what is the criteria that we should be putting forth as we look for this consultant. And that group will be very instrumental in guiding the work of this engagement, but also being eyes and ears for the consultant to also help determine where should we be doing workshops, what businesses should we be engaging, what are the different stakeholders. And so I think that it'll be very important to be in contact over the next week, and hopefully early next week we can get this working group meeting started so we can hit the ground running.
And do you think the consultant will be, and I don't know if you'll have the consultant in place by early next week, but do you think the consultant, like, I know the city has to go through a procurement process for these things. Do you expect that the consultant would be kind of identified promptly so we can start having that conversation and moving forward at the outreach?
Absolutely. The city is committed to working smart and fast. And let me just say the word fast is very important. As I kind of mentioned in my opening statement, the sooner we're able to go through this community process, really receive the input and feedback from the community, the sooner we're able to get a plan together, the sooner we're able to get this building back to the tenants and back to the community. So we're committed in talking both to yourself as well as the other elected members. We understand that they want this to move quickly, and so we're committed to that as well.
Okay, so I'm going to end there because, you know, we have 200 people here, and my staff has had an opportunity to get some information from you directly as well, and we look forward to next week's meeting. And just to say again, you know, our office, and I know all my colleagues are committed to ensuring that, you know, this process go forward in a way that has broad input and that, you know, leads to, you know, at least some effort to get a consensus. I also do want to acknowledge that CB3 had some very long meetings into the night. I was present for a lot of that and did a very, I think, productive job of surfacing a lot of the views on this and giving, you know, the first opportunity for a significant public forum. So I want to acknowledge that as well, that was a good start to this process. But I appreciate what's going on tonight. Appreciate the many people in the community who are joining. And I'll be on I can't stay for the whole thing because I have another engagement, but I'll stay on for a bit and my staff will be here for the duration. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Yulene, I know you have your hand up, but I wanted to ask one more time, are there any other elected officials before we go back to Yulene? All right, Yulene.
All right, so Sorry, I just wanted to add, you know, just to piggyback onto what Brian was asking, could you just clarify again the community engagement process? Because I know that we had talked, you had just said 90 days, and then also that there was going to be, I also wanted to kind of know if there was going to be some kind of facilitator or anything that to make sure that, you know, folks are actually, you know, getting to have those discussions in that 90 days and what it looks like. So could you timeline that out for us, just for folks' sake, and just so that we have that on the record?
Of course. So what we're thinking through is next week we will have the working group meeting, which I mentioned. It will be a representative of all the elected officials, including the community board, as well as the 5 tenant organizations. That group will be responsible for helping to set up the criteria for actually getting the consultant. So as we think through the RFP, what criteria we want to have to make sure that this consultant is someone who is thought of and ensures that they have the community or this group support in making sure that they can actually do and facilitate the process. Once we have that person on board, there is 90 days in which that person will have, along with the advice and consent from this group,
so there's no other meeting with the rest of the community. It was just the
no. So I'm sorry. The facilitator would facilitate the different meetings. What the advisory group's role will be is to say, hey, we think that there should be a meeting of this group. We think that there should be a meeting of that group. So that would be the help and I guess the advice and the recommendations from the advisory group. But the facilitator's job is solely to go out into the community and have these groups. And that could be anything from having business meetings, that could be having community engagements, workshops, design workshops, any creative, thought-provoking thought process that this facilitator could come up with. That would be up to them.
Okay, and what are, I just want to, just for folks who are, you know, also asking the same question, so what is the thing that would make it so that it wouldn't, you know, nothing would make it stall, I guess, and leave us with an empty lot here in Chinatown?
So I will say that, what do you mean as far as the community engagement process? Is that the question?
Yeah,
Like,
well, so I mean, I'm saying like, we want the community engagement process, obviously, but then at the end of it, and then the budget process, we don't know if it'll like match up at all actually with the city council budget process. And then on top of that, like, we won't know like what could possibly happen after these 90 days and what that calendar looks like, to make sure that folks don't end up with nothing happening, because we've also seen that.
So I wouldn't be able to answer that question, because I think what we're thinking through now is trying to get the community process started, so that we're not still talking about this community process in January, right? So like, that's why we have set this timeline for 90 days. And I echo what we have talked about in other conversations, that, you know, we really want to gain consensus very quickly. And so we're going to be asking both as the advisory board, as well as community organizations, community leaders, to help us really get to the nit and grit of what the community wants. What are they recommending? What do they think this redevelopment or rebuild or repair should look like, and helping us really kind of come to that consensus so that we can move forward. So I wouldn't be able to tell you what would happen necessarily post that, but I am very committed on behalf of the city to ensuring that this is a smart and fast process.
Okay. Great. And then if there's ever, you know, a way for us to do a timeline comparison on rebuild, or on, you know, just kind of doing like the full demolition, like, can you just give it to us so that people know? I think that would be really helpful in the community making a consensual, like, consensus decision. And also, you know, because we know so many people need the access to the buildings, et cetera. And, you know, I just reiterate the fact that I did try to get us to do a town hall much earlier on. And I hope that, you know, now that we are doing one, that we can you know, move forward as a community and have these discussions. So thank you so much, Quentin, and thank you so much to everyone who's willing to participate on the call. I also want to thank especially CB3 for being willing to really be able to have the space for us today. And so if you can just make sure that we have that compared timeline just for the community to be able to discuss things, that would be really helpful, Quentin. Thank you.
So we've got Gail Brewer, our borough president, just recently joined us, and Evelyn from Nydia Velasquez's office. Did you want to make a comment as well?
I want to be brief. I just want to be brief because I really want to hear the input of the stakeholders. As we've been discussing for months now, and I want to thank CB3 and the Congresswoman's colleagues in government. We are all concerned about the future of this particular, iconic building in the Chinatown community. We stand with the community. We need to address it in a holistic way. And I want to thank DCAST for coming through and making some serious, good commitments that sound viable to us. We are going to have, and they're committed to getting that independent facilitator and consultant, which is important in these projects. And I think that the Assemblywoman and Senator Kavanaugh both touched upon the budget issue. This is something that we will all continue to monitor. But right now, I think it's crucial for all of us to first hear from the stakeholders. We have over 200 people on the call, so we're eager to hear what their input is. So thank you on behalf of the Congresswoman for inviting us to partake in this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Borough President Gail Brewer, would you like to comment?
I was just on another call, so I haven't heard the whole discussion, but I know from Matthew Washington, the same excellent words that have been said. Thank you to Board 3. Thank you to DCAS. Quentin Haynes, I don't know you, but you obviously know what you're talking about. And as long as you stay with this project, I would suggest that we might have a good outcome. I think 90 days is an excellent frame. The Chinatown community has been through a tremendous amount of challenges on every single front. And so the fact that this is time to discuss is important. I mean, I'm the biggest preservationist in the world, but I'm also the biggest supporter of the nonprofit community. And I would love to find a way that all of those interests can be part of this really almost unique opportunity, very unusual to have in the borough of Manhattan, a city-owned building that could house affordably nonprofits. And that's what we're looking toward in the future. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Gail. I'm going to turn it over to Gigi Lee, who is going to introduce some of the tenants, current tenants from 70 Mulberry, and they're going to ask their questions, and then we will open it up to the public for questions and comments. Gigi?
Just very quickly before I do, on behalf of Councilmember Margaret Chin, who wishes she could be here today, very shortly ago, after a 3-hour stated meeting, they jumped into budget negotiating meetings, which are happening every day this week and have to be decided on next year's budget by next week. So I am here to just express support for the announcements that are made today, and that to commit that the council member will do everything in her power to move this project along with her partners in government and City Hall. So with that, Wayne Ho from Chinese American Planning Council will start off making a statement on behalf of the tenants. And then if the other 4 tenants could just raise your hand so that Michael can see you. And I know you have no particular order, but the names are Nancy Masbach, Echo Wong, HT and Dion Chen, and Hong Lee. We will have the timer up, so everyone moving forward now gets 2 minutes. I'll give you a warning, and then very apologetically, either Michael or myself may cut you off. So please try to adhere to the 2 minute limit. So Wayne?
Great. Thank you very much, Gigi. I also want to thank Community Board 3, DCAS, as well as all the overlapping elected officials. I'm Wayne Ho, the President and CEO of the Chinese American Planning Council, CPC. We've been operating for 55 years as a social services organization, and we are one of the 5 tenants of 70 Mulberry Street. I'm here today on behalf of the 5 tenants to say that we all continue to remain united and in solidarity about the future of the site. We all have a common vision for the future of 70 Mulberry Street, and as longtime tenants, we want to continue working with the city and DCAS and the elected officials, as well as the community, as we plan for the future of the site. I want to emphasize that we are all community-based. We have been serving the Chinatown community for many, many decades. We serve the community, we employ the community, In total, each year, the 5 tenants serve over 125,000 community members. So we are familiar with the needs of the community. I would like to remind everyone about what the 5 tenants have put forward. We wanted to make sure that after having an independent engineering report, that the demolition of 70 Mulberry Street move forward, and based on this data, it makes sense to move forward as quickly as possible. We want to make sure that elements are preserved of the building, that the future design respects the history of 70 Mulberry Street. We were happy to hear that there's a commitment from DCAS for the 5 tenants to remain involved in the design and planning process. And we all want to move back in as soon as possible at the same rate of rent that we are paying. CPC, we've run our senior center there for 40 years, and it's not glib to say that any delay is a lifetime for our seniors. Our seniors are all in their 70s and 80s, and they need the senior center open as soon as possible to get their hot meal for the day and their services. So thank you very much, Gigi, for the time and the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the tenants.
Thank you for your perfect timing. Next tenant.
Why don't we go with Echo?
Echo Wong from United East Athletic Association.
Echo, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you, Gigi. Thank you, all the elected officials and CP3 who organized this event so everybody can hear from the public and also from us again, because last time somebody say they didn't even know the 5 tenants had spoken at the community land use committee meetings. I also want to thank DCAS for including us every step of the way since we have the fire, helping us to get our stuff and identify space for us. I just want to share, we told the kids that this year United East will not have the summer camp. For the first year since 26 years ago, we set up this program. Alice Wong, student, has been coming to our program for 4 years. She's 12 years old. I feel like Fun Fun Saturday has really made an impact in my childhood. Besides giving me something to do on the days I have spent doing nothing, Fun Fun Saturday taught me a lot of things, teamwork, hard work, and a lot of skills. We also have something from the parents. I'm a parent of one of the many kids that Fun Fun Saturday has helped. I have watched as my kid grew up to be a better student, friend, and family members because of the program. I have a lot of these messages since we told them that we are now homeless, we can do a program. But these are the voices of our communities. United East community, 70 Mulberry Street community, Chinatown community, and they all want us to be able to go back home, continue with the program, serve them. Any delay to us will be the delay to the future users, our community members, and the seniors and kids who have been enjoying our programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Echo. Why don't we hear from Nancy from MoCA?
Thank you so much. And I echo as well as my other tenants. But most of all, I do want to extend again my great appreciation on behalf of the MoCA board and the team to the city and the team led by Quentin. And just, again, we can't say this enough. We will be forever indebted to DCAS's leadership on getting out 95% of our archival materials in a fire that we all witnessed to be something that nothing should have come out of their salvage. So we cannot thank you enough. We, just reiterate the power of place. And I think the outpouring of over 200 people on this call does show that nostalgia of that place is so important. And we want to reiterate that the museum is committed to anything that is salvaged from the building, preserving its elements, as Wayne had mentioned, the lobby, the facade, the historical signage, the cast iron columns, anything that can be preserved that we might be able to help curate a memorial, if you will, to 70 Mulberry and the history of PS23. I wanted to share also with the members of the people on this call that we were able to salvage all of our collection that came out of the museum that was related to PS23. So all of that has been salvaged, including furniture, including student cards and records that we've had for decades. So that has been all salvaged and it's just under repair, but we should be able to place those on view. And we're excited about that process. Also, we wanted to remind you that the museum serves over 50,000 people and that the collections and the research center is a big part of research and scholarship. We also want to remind the community that the museum was always free to Chinatown and Lower East Side residents, and we didn't make that a barrier to entry and wanted to make it as accessible as possible. But we wanted to reaffirm that, one, we stand united with the other tenants, and that one of the greatest pleasures I've had in this process, the silver lining, if you will, is that camaraderie that we've built with CPC, Chinatown Manpower, UEA, and HT Chen. And that camaraderie will be a lasting component for us. And we're community-based and that believe in those 5 pillars that Wayne had mentioned. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Next.
Hong?
And then after Hong will be Dion from HT Chen and Dancers.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Hong Lee, Executive Director of Chinatown Manpower Project, CMP. I'm not going to repeat everyone's thank you. I think we thank everyone enough. And you just know that we appreciate everyone's support for all this time since the fire. CMP has been in the building for over 40 years. And during this 40-year period, we serve about close to 100,000 immigrant workers come through our doors and get a job, get the work experience. They get to go enroll in college and have a successful career. And before I forget, I want to let you know that we have about 37 members of CMP students attending tonight's town hall. And we have about 3 representatives who are ready to speak. So I'm going to send the names to the chat to the host, and hopefully you can call upon them to talk about their own opinion, their own experience about the services and how CMP impact their lives. We offer job training programs, small business assistance, adult literacy programs, and we also operate one of the largest Chinese language and culture schools in the community. We serve about 3,000 people each year. Some more, some less, but for the recent year, we serve about 3,000. I want to make sure that everyone understand that all the tenants stand united on the 5 points that Wayne had mentioned earlier. And I want to additionally remind everyone that while there are a lot of talk about preserving the building, yes, the history is important, but I also want to remind that equally important, if not more, is what's inside the building. The lives that we change through the services provided inside the building, the hard work that immigrants put together to make themselves economically self-sufficient, these all happen inside the building. And the building is a vehicle for us to provide this service. It's important for us to be able to get back.
Can you wrap up, please?
Yep, that's it.
That's it? Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you. Dion?
Hi, I'm sitting here with HT Chen, and we have been at 70 Mulberry for many, many years, since 1980. This is really our home base because we made a conscious decision to leave La Mama. Ellen Stewart was a founding member of our board, and she finally called us La Mama Chinatown. To pay rent and be right in our own community, because we just felt that something was really missing for the children and families. And for all these years, HT has created the most amazing choreography that paid homage to the history of Chinese in Americas. And as a 5th generation Chinese American myself, I do have deep roots in the community. But in particular, 70 Mulberry Street location has such significance because not only does it validate us as a community, the community's presence of being there many years, but also the elegance, the idea that it was used to be an educational institution. There's just a certain kind of feng shui and energy that the site gave us. And when we have all these visiting school groups from the local schools in the area to schools citywide who came, they were all in awe of the architecture, and they wanted to come to see and learn about Chinese American history in this historic place that used to be called Five Points. So, you know, for us, we feel that it's very important that we continue to work with our constituents as much as possible, as fast as possible. We have been continuing our services to serve through online classes, help choreographers, and okay, so we're running out of time.
Bring them. The other student went to major arts institution, even high school, performing arts high school in New York.
But I think one of the most
time up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So folks, we're going to start taking questions and comments from the public now. Again, we're going to have the same 2-minute limit. There's a bunch of hands raised already. So if you want to make a question or a comment, please raise your hand, and we will, Gigi and I will take turns calling on you. We will start with Eric Poon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for all the hard work that you are doing here to put us back in our home. I'm actually one of the members of United East Athletics Association, and from a very young age, I was actually one of the people that greatly benefited from the work that United East has done in the community. Growing up, ever since the age of 6, and when I was ripe and available for the program, I've learned from many mentors. I've met many friends, and I've actually had a lot of role models growing up. And I can proudly say that I won't be where I am today if it weren't for the impact that United East has. And as a matter of fact, a lot of our students do come back and volunteer as well. So we actually see this as an ongoing, continuing enrichment program for people to get the experience, for youth to learn, to get the experience, the working experience, and the volunteering experience to give back to the community. I feel that United East is a community organization that can do a lot of good, and the volumes of people that we have supporting us do speak to that. So with that in mind, I think it is very important that that you guys have a chance to hear our voices and how appreciative we are of all the work that's being done here. I do stress that similar to what you've heard earlier from all the other tenants in 70 Mulberry, that we would love to get back in there as soon as possible so we can continue to do the work that we do and continue to serve the communities that we reside in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
I also just want to make a quick announcement that because we started a little bit late, that we will take question and answers through 8:15. But the translators have to leave, so 8:15 is the drop dead time that we have to finish. So I think I see the other names on here: Sharon Kai, followed by Mitchell Grubler.
Hello everyone, I'm Sharon. I'm from United East Athletics Association. I started as a volunteer in 2013 along with my siblings, who I have seen them become volunteers and mentors along to our next generation of students. Over the years, I took on many more roles, from being an assistant to teaching my own class. And recently I've taken on an admin role where me and a group of teens come weekly at the clubhouse and we discuss ways to improve on our program. One thing that we do, one of our biggest events is Fun Summer Registration. Last year, we had over 280 families walk through the clubhouse to register their children for an unforgettable summer. We also have a parents program that allows the parents to get involved in the summer along with their kids. And we have resume workshops and career panels that help many volunteers. And I remember attending these events helped me apply for my first job and opened up many different internship opportunities. UE also has many different sports programs that utilizes the clubhouse space. And I'm part of the line dance team for over 5 years, and I started my own kids program last year. And we use the clubhouse space every week to practice. One thing that makes the UE line dance team very unique is that many of the members are female, and traditionally that's very uncommon to see female line dancers, and that makes me feel empowered to be part of the team. Every year, I look forward to doing a grand finale in front of the clubhouse for our community on Super Saturday. And over the years, the clubhouse has become a second home to me. And I look forward to the day that we can all gather in a physical space, a place that has been a positive influence on my life and many Asian American families in our community. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Mitchell?
Yeah, I'll be brief. I have two questions based on what we heard in the reports. First question is from the structural assessment. We heard that there was damage to the 4th and 5th floors. Very little, if anything, was said about the 3rd floor, and whatever other assessment there was of damage to lower floors, it sounds like most of it was deterioration even before the fire because of the city's neglect to the building. So my question is, why are you stopping at the 2nd floor when we didn't hear about much in the way of structural damage to the 3rd floor? My second question is, the Lira Group has very extensive preservation experience. So my question is, in your assessment, can the outer walls of the building, especially the street-facing walls, be retained and the interior retrofitted and rehabbed for the purpose-built needs of the 5 tenants?
Quentin, do you want to answer that question?
Hi, Mitchell. Quentin here. I'll answer your first question and turn your second question over to Joseph Grant for his assessment. So as I mentioned, when you said 2nd floor, we're talking about and I'm going to speak literally, the 3rd floor. So literally the 2nd floor ceiling, the 3rd floor. So that's what I mean by that. So when I said 2nd, I was referring to the roof or the ceiling of the 2nd floor, not necessarily the ground of the 2nd floor. And that's what we're going down to. So I hope that clarifies a little bit and to your question. And then I'll turn the other secondary question to Lira.
Thanks, Quentin. We have a lot of experience with preservation. Our analysis was damage assessment, not from a preservation standpoint, but the exterior of the building does have deterioration because of age. That would require a certain amount of restoration. To what extent, we haven't gotten into that granularly. Again, this was more high level overall budgeting. But anything can be preserved, if enough effort and money is put into it. There are, significant historic elements to the building. So preservation, from a preservationist standpoint, and somebody who has experience doing it, that makes the most amount of sense and is great. But to what extent, we haven't gone into that sort of micro level to look at this point.
Thank you. All right, the next questions will be coming from, we'll start with Jenny Yu and then Carlin Chan. Jenny? Jenny, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Are you looking for Jenny Lowe? Because I'm Jenny Lowe. So if I raise my hand, if there's someone else.
It's somebody else, Jenny Yu.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, thank you, Jenny.
Okay, great, thank you. So, yes, hi, my name is Jenny, and I'm a team manager with UEAA. I've been with this organization for 12 years, and I met my husband, who also spent the majority of his life as a volunteer for the organization, and later on, he became a coach for our Dragon Boat program. Our son is now 3 years old, and he's visited 70 Mulberry weekly, actually, since he was just a week old. And it's my hope that he will grow up at 70 Mulberry and be shaped by the experiences through the programs and become a volunteer and grow up to be a leader himself. So 70 Mulberry Street was our clubhouse. Like, this space is a place where the young and the old cross paths. It's a place where youth learn and develop their leadership skills, where the elderly sharpen their minds through games of chess, and where tradition and culture get passed on from generation to generation. And also a place where young professionals and teens find camaraderie and support through sports and athletics. So, it's more than just a building of mortar and stone. It's really, like Sharon said, our second home. And UE does not have any satellite spaces. We don't have any satellite locations where we can operate out of, and we're still without a space to operate a majority of our programs during normal afternoon, evening, and weekend hours, despite just months of working with the city. So, hopefully we can kind of keep moving forward and be able to find a alternative space to use in the meantime. So we definitely need some more help in that area. But we're now homeless and still struggling to maintain our connections with each other and with our community. And, we really need 70 Mulberry rebuilt as quickly as possible so that we can get back on our feet and do the work that we love. And along with the other tenants, we look forward to being involved with the design and envisioning process so that we can rebuild a space that better meets the needs of the community. We're really looking forward to kicking off the rebuild process and hopefully be able to get back in the space. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Before we go to Carlin, I just want to ask our interpreters in our interpretation rooms if you can ask people you're interpreting for if they have any questions, and if so, just shoot me a message in the chat box to let me know, and we can try to take some of the questions out of the interpretation rooms as well. Carlin?
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question for DCAS. Since the current demolition is going to stop on the third floor, okay, and then this conversation for 90 days is going to carry on with community engagement and all that. All right, we have another equation here that no one's ever addressed. The businesses along Bayard Street are suffering because of the street closure. All right, so during this community engagement period of 3 months, and then another 8 to 10 months of consulting work to hire a firm to either restore or rebuild a new structure, can we reopen Bayard Street? Bayard Street needs to be reopened to the public for public use, because the small business along there, they're already suffering from this pandemic, and they will close if the street is not reopened. So can DCAS, when you get to the third floor, can you build a security wall along Mulberry Street, along the sidewalk somewhere, to keep out the vacancy, but reopen Bayard Street? Thank you.
Thank you. Quentin, can you answer that?
Sure. Hi, Carlin. So we are looking into that. So we hear you loud and clear, and we've been in touch with our other agency partners, and we're looking to see if that is possible. We hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Gigi?
Okay, I think we have a question over the phone. Whoever is Q Thing iPhone, who has your hand up, do you want to go next? And then after that is Richard Moses.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's me. I'm Ching. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Joyce, and I'm honored to be here today. I want to speak here on behalf of the students of Chinatown Manpower. I came to New York 2 years ago. When I first arrived in New York, I felt very lonely, confused, and hopeless due to language and culture difference. Fortunately, I discovered Chinatown Manpower. In Chinatown Manpower, I not only learned to improve my English skills, but also learned American culture, especially New York local culture. Later, after recommendation of the Chinatown Manpower, I found a job at Christoph Law Group, PC, and Wall Street as a paralegal. Today, I want to say that there are many new immigrants who have the same feelings and experiences as me. Many young new immigrants successfully attend college with the help of Chinatown Manpower. Chinatown Manpower is a bridge for our new immigrants to integrate into society, and it is an important assistant for us to start a new life. When we heard that offices and classrooms of Chinatown Manpower were destroyed by the fire, we felt extremely sad, just like the homes we should trust were destroyed. Now, we strongly demand that Chinatown Manpower should be moved back to its original address because it is the hope and symbol of the new life of our new immigrants. Thanks.
Thank you. Richard?
Yes, thank you. I'm Richard Moses from the Lower East Side Preservation Initiative. And I have two questions, similar but a little different from Mitchell Grubler's questions. One is that based on SGH's engineering study, is there any reason that demolition can't be stopped at this point of time until it's, a further analysis can be done as to whether repair and restoration of the building's exterior walls can be done along with the modernization program of the interior versus new construction? And the second part of the question is, has there been an independent analysis of repair, restoration, and interior modernization versus new building construction in terms of both costs and time factor? Because our feeling is that repair and interior modernization would be typically faster and less expensive. Thank you.
Hi, Richard. I can take the first question and I'll ask other folks to take the second one too. In regards to your first question about whether demolition can stop now, unfortunately, no. So we are mandated by DOB post the fire to remove the top floors because they suffered severe structural damage and they required us to move those floors. So the answer to your question is, unfortunately, no, we cannot stop demolition. We have to go to the third floor as mandated by DOB. And for your second question, I can turn it over to Joe to answer.
So in regard to the cost and time, again, we did a high level analysis based on square footage and observed damage. And the replacement costs and the repair costs, when you just do it on a cost per square foot, are not far off from one end to the other. The price per square foot is relatively the same. As far as schedule goes, we would have to analyze that more. To take the building down, demo any building is a very quick process. For full demolition. Selective demolition is more involved. I can have Nate speak more to that, but there's shoring of existing walls, temporary bracings that need to be put into place for public protection and so on and so forth to preserve the skin of the building, so to speak. So that is an involved process. But to say which would be ultimately faster, I think programming and the planning of how the building is going to be used and laid out would really need to be better understood to know the ultimate time schedule for either one of those.
Thank you, GCAS. Just a reminder, folks, as we approach 8 o'clock, we've only got about 15 minutes left, and there's still at least a dozen people with their hands up, so we most likely will not get to everyone's questions or comments. So if those of you who have not been called on yet, if you want to type in questions or comments into the chat box, please feel free to do so, and I will download that and send it off to GCAS as well as the council member's office and the community board's office. So our next presenters, we'll start with Jenny Lowe, and then we'll go to Wing Mu. Jenny?
Yes. Hi, thank you. I wanted to thank you for giving me a chance to speak at tonight's call. I wanted to say that I am a longtime resident of Lower East Side Chinatown. I am currently a Democratic district leader in representing the Chinatown area. 17 Mulberry Street represents a lot for our community. It's a place for local community groups and a facility where we all have come to love and feel very comfortable as a home, a second home for many of us, especially for the seniors who have gone there since the senior center started there in the 70s. Since the fire earlier this year, we've been waiting for a long time for real community commitment from the city to how to rebuild the facility. And we want it to be built in a way that preserves the spirit of what it represents to all of us, creating a new space for the tenants who are currently there so that we can continue to use it as a hub for our neighborhood. I wanted to make sure that the city understands that it is your responsibility to rebuild the building properly, to rebuild it for us and do it very quickly. And funding for this project must be secure. And you also need to keep the community involved every step of the way. I know earlier the city representative did not elaborate in terms of where the funding will come from. And also we heard that the mayor had said a few days ago that the city is essentially broke due to the COVID pandemic. But I also wanted to remind people that the mayor have allocated $8.9 billion to build the new detention center, new jail, and not far from 70 Mulberry Street.
Wrap up, Jenny.
We need to think about this disaster that happened for our community. We need the mayor to reduce the budget for the jail and use that money to ensure that the 70 Mulberry Street is rebuilt in a way that not only keeps the spirit of the facility, but build it in a modern way where we can have a modern facility for all the tenants.
Thank you, Jenny, very much. We're going to move on to Wing now, please.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Wing. I am a veteran for the United States Army, and after I had completed my tour of duty, I joined the New York City Transit Authority as a facility maintenance supervisor for almost 30 years, till I reached my retirement about a few weeks ago. Then I become a volunteer for the Amigo Senior Citizen Center in Brooklyn. Also, I'm a student in CMP, which is Manpower, to study English. And because I have to improve my English, because number one is for the quality of life, and also to help other people. And unfortunately, the beginning of this year, there's a huge fire destroyed this building, and we lost our study home. And we got relocated to one of the church, use the conference room as our temporary classroom. Now with the COVID-19, we lose our temporary facility for studying. We have to study by internet, something like we have the Zoom room, but it's very difficult for us to learn because we cannot able to easily have any interacting in the classroom. And for the new immigrant, even more terrible because some of them don't have equipment, some of them doesn't know how to do the technical thing, so they cannot able to join us. So please, if you try to rebuild this building or repair as soon as possible, because we need this place very, very bad. Thank you very much. Just one question. I wonder if when you guys rebuild or repair, is there an elevator going to add on to this building? Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Quentin, do you want to answer that question? I believe I know the answer, but.
Well, first, thank you for your service. I did hear you mention that you're a veteran. And then to answer your question, that will be something that we hope that you are vocal with throughout the community engagement process. So we hope that you're a participant in that process, and we'll hear from you there.
Thank you, Quentin. Gigi?
Thanks. The next two speakers are Roz and Lillian Bitt.
Roz, sorry, I muted you as soon as you unmuted yourself. You can, there you go.
Okay now? Am I okay now?
Yes, we're okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to speak fast. My name is Roz Liam. I speak as an architect, retired from Lee Saltzman Architects, where I specialized in the restoration of historic buildings in the New York metropolitan area. I'm not challenging the structural assessment, but it is just too bad that there is a rush to demolish before exploring alternate strategies. Historic buildings are a non-renewable resource. Preservation doesn't necessarily mean delay. It may even save time due to keeping the foundation. We should not be made to choose between keeping our heritage and getting back there soon. Both can be accommodated with good planning. I am also speaking as a member of the Asian American community, as a Filipino Chinese immigrant to this country. New York's Chinatown is the cultural home of not just Chinese Americans, but Pan-Asian American community far beyond Chinatown's physical borders. We suffer a lot during this pandemic when we see the Chinatown stores closed, and we worry if there will be a Chinatown in our future. Our identities and well-being are inextricably linked to the physical, tangible, and intangible aspects of Chinatown. We worry that this place, which continues to be a big part of our experience, will disappear building by building. Then how will our children and grandchildren know what is so much a part of our immigrant experience? While we look out for our present seniors, we understand they need to be there, back there, and we appreciate that need. But we should also look out for the interest of the future generation, as this is their heritage as well and should be preserved. I urge you to stop demolition and explore alternatives to save what is left. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lillian?
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I'm going to reiterate what the lady just before said about stopping demolition and also during the 90-day period. I don't know how far down you have to go according to the Department of Buildings, but we should have a 90-day engagement along with stopping demolition, because there's not enough information that is really satisfactory, because the three most important things that I see is the safety of the safety of PS 23, the outside businesses along Mulberry and also Baxter, Bayard. Do they know if drilling down, the drilling situation, would that drill into the utilities below the ground where it would affect the surrounding businesses already, which are struggling to come back to business? No, have we really answered that? Also, I think the structural committee really doesn't really speak in layman's terms, but I think that the gentleman, Joseph Grant, did say that there was a possibility that preservation can be reconsidered, can be considered. It looks like demolition has just continued, and it seems like lots of the people are in agreement about demolition, but I think the community efforts right now opposing that have very good reasons not to continue the demolition, based on safety, which I had just mentioned, based on time. You don't have a timeline. That's not adequately answered here. And also for cost. There is no cost here as far as how much is it? And we really have to be realistic. Does the city really have the money to really give to PS23 realistically and in the time frame that you think the tenants want within those 3 years, the speed with which they want to get in? You really have to think about bulldozing away our history will also destroy our roots. Hello?
Please wrap up.
Okay, all right. I just want to say that bulldozing away our history will cut and destroy our roots. It's almost like MoCA's archives have been destroyed and they couldn't come back because you've already destroyed them. We have to use a preservationist because to determine all the above factors of safety, time, cost, because they have the best expertise. If this structural company can do that, I'm all on for discussing the engagement period of 90 days. But I think we should stop demolition because—
Thank you. Sorry, Lillian, I'm going to move on. We have a lot of other people who want to try to make comments. We've asked everyone to stay to 2 minutes. Quentin, did you want to answer any of her questions about drilling before we take our final questions?
We can move on to the final questions.
Okay, so again, I'm sorry, folks, that we have a time limit. I'm going to call on 2 people that I believe are representing business owners in the area, Think Chinatown and Susan. So why don't we start with Think Chinatown?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Susan, we're going to start with Think Chinatown, but go ahead, Susan.
Okay, my name is Susan Chan, representing Manhattan Florist, which is directly located across the street from 70 Mulberry. Tonight, I'm also representing 24 other small business owners on Mulberry Street between Canal and Bayard Street between Mulberry and Bowery. 24 because at 3:30 p.m., all the others were closed due to the COVID environment, plus 2 other businesses where the business owners weren't available. The 70 Mulberry fire devastated the community on January 23rd, 2 days prior to Lunar New Year. The busiest time in Chinatown. Most of the businesses around 70 Mulberry were fully stocked for the holiday. Our flower shop lost 40% of our inventory as they were all perishables. Today, due to the COVID environment, we are financially crippled and are on our last limb. The immediate business community needs 70 Mulberry to be quickly demolished, have the ground cemented for possible community use until the time when funding and collective decision has been reached by the city, Chinatown Committee, and 70 Mulberry tenants. We need the Bayard Street between Mulberry and Mott to be reopened to vehicular traffic. We need parking for our customers so businesses can restart. Previously, the business community requested street lamps to be installed by the walls that have been erected along 70 Mulberry. At each meeting, we were just entertained. There still isn't one light bulb. We requested security in the evening. There still isn't. We complained about health issues due to dust, mold, etc. Requested some type of building wrapping as we complained about other health issues. Nothing that we requested since January were taken care of. Please, the small businesses in the immediate area cannot wait. Our businesses closed since mid-March. Everyone on our block is on the hook for full rent. We don't have $1 less from our current rent. Our taxes are due and utilities. We do not have 90 days liquidity.
Susan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Think Chinatown.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yen Kong. I'm the director of Think Chinatown. I'm also a resident. We're a nonprofit based in Chinatown that focuses on neighborhood engagement. So, of course, we've taken great interest to this important community issue. I want to challenge the narrative that we need to choose between expediency of rebuilding and preservation of our history. I really want to challenge the idea that we need to choose between supporting our community nonprofits or honoring the sense of place this building provides Chinatown. I have to add, a placard is not a sufficient way of maintaining a sense of place. The Think Chinatown team has been consulting with architectural and engineering professionals that have expertise in historic architectural projects. And they've said that reusing the facade can actually shorten rebuilding time, that we can build better and bigger spaces for our nonprofits while maintaining the facade. We have these findings listed on our website, thinkchinatown.org, for those who, if you want to read up more on that. I look forward to DCAS's community engagement process, but I know they've already applied for a permit for full demolition without comparison studies of what timelines would look like for full demolition or partial preservation of the facade, or budget comparisons. So my questions are, how can DCAS form trust with the community and make sure all options are being explored? Also, historic restoration experts have offered pro bono services to evaluate. Will DCAS be allowing them to access and facilitate them? And if not, why? How many participants today actually needed the interpretation? I didn't see anyone in the interpretation room. So how will we know that DCAS is actually outreaching to all members of our community? And also, what is the budget for a community engagement process?
Thank you. Quentin, do you want to address those questions?
Sure. I didn't catch your name, and I only see kind of your the business title. So thank you for your questions. If I do forget one of your questions, please just ask it again so that I can make sure I address it.
I can go one by one. Let's start with the first one. How will DCAS form trust with the community so that all options are being explored?
I think that is the community engagement process that I outlined earlier. So in hearing the community and hearing that you guys wanted DCAS or the city to pause demolition, we've done so, right? So we've paused demolition while we do this community engagement process. And hearing that the city wanted the community wanted an independent engineer, we have done so, right? So we hired an independent engineer and they're presenting tonight. So every step of the way, I think, and I know because I've been one of those folks who have been a part of every last one of these meetings, and also have been out in the community and have tried our best to both engage, but also listen. And where we can and have been able to kind of either change the way we're doing something, be more transparent, be more communicative, we've done so. And I think that is evident today. So, you know, our commitment stands as is, that we will be transparent, we will be committed to communication. And I think that this next step of like the community engagement process is there for that.
Sorry, the specific question was on comparison of budgets and timelines.
Oh, so that will be also
demolition and partial preservation.
So as you probably are aware, there has not been a preservation analysis done. So there is no cost for that that you can compare it to.
I think there'd be a lot more trust built with the community if that was made public. If that that evaluation happened and was made public so that we can see all of our choices before we have to make them.
And I take that feedback from you. And I think one of the things that I would hope that both your organization as well as others who have that same sentiment can be a part of this process, this community engagement process, to voice that concern. And if ultimately that is something that you know, the community wants, then let's talk about how we get that done.
Thanks. The next question was historic restoration experts have offered pro bono services to evaluate. Will you be allowing them to access and facilitate their access?
This will be the last question that we have time for, Quentin. Sorry.
Gotcha. So I think let's connect offline. If you have folks who are interested in talking to us about preservation, that's what this engagement process is. And I hate to keep going back to that, but as of right now, you know, without knowing who these preservationists are, and what organizations, it's hard to kind of say on like right now that we'll schedule that. But happy to have the conversation.
Thank you, Quentin. Again, apologies for the last 5 people who had their hands up that we didn't have time for. I do see that. I think all of you did put your questions and comments in the chat box, so that will be downloaded and emailed to DCAS as well as to Councilmember Chin's office and to the Community Board's district manager. Thank you everyone for attending tonight. We had, I think, over 230 people when we were at max capacity. On behalf of the community board, we want to thank you all for coming. I think Gigi has some closing comments as well. Gigi?
Yes, so just if there are additional questions, you can feel free to email me directly. My email is pretty simple. It's just GLI, like giraffe, Larry, igloo, at council, like city council, council.nyc.gov. And just please include your email as well. And your question, and we will work very hard to get those answers to you. And I think also just want to share that Deputy Borough President Matthew Washington and I did have a Zoom call with a small group of preservationists where Think Chinatown did share that they may have secured a pro bono preservationist to do an assessment of the building. And we said that, you know, once you gave that name to us, we would be happy to facilitate that conversation with City Hall. So that offer has been made, and we're just waiting for who the, you know, some names and contact information. So with that being said, thank you everyone, and thank you for being patient with our early technology road bump. And I hope everyone has a good evening. And this is, I think, the start of a very productive and inclusive conversation.
Thank you, Gigi. Quentin, there's some questions in the chat about contacts for GCAS. Do you have contact information that you're willing to make public for people?
So what I would ask is if people can actually email the community board, similar to how we did at our last community board presentation, and collect that information. We're happy to get that. And if you have an individual contacts that you need for us to get back to, please just make that known, and we'll reach back out to you.
Thank you, Quentin. Again, this meeting was recorded. The video usually takes overnight to process, so it should be posted sometime tomorrow on the community board's YouTube channel. So we will probably add that link to our website as well. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Thank you, Michael.